Well, I'd say most people looked at the schedule and they saw LFM versus Team Freedom, and everybody probably would have said 2-0. Probably not in the way that we're seeing it right now, though, Dred.
Not in the way that we're seeing it right now. I'm kind of at a loss for words. It's a mixture of, I think a lot of people at home, probably first question, a lot of people in the back, even the crew, you know, huge fans of obviously HGC and things like they're like, Dred, is this LFM stepping up? Is this Team Freedom really struggling? And I think it's a small mixture of both, but if I was to give them more credit, you know, in one direction or another, it absolutely is LFM stepping up to the plate here today and able to play against Medivh, play with Medivhs, able to make a lot happen here.
Well, we're going to see what more they can make happen as it's time to figure out what battleground we're going to and whether Team Freedom wants to take control or not. And they do, and they're taking it back to an old faithful of theirs where in Phase 1, Infernal Shrines was their pick all day, every day. But this phase, Dreadnought, they've only picked it once, had high priority on other battlegrounds up until this point. So definitely going back to something maybe more neutral, something they can maybe play around differently.
Yeah, I don't feel like it gives that major of an edge in one direction or another. You know, the pulling away from Infernal Shrines with how popular of a battleground it got, and I feel like positionally draft-wise, not a major advantage in one area or another. It's one battleground that I feel like teams should be comfortable kind of lowering in the priority, so I like that we see that there, but by no means, you know, do I feel like an immediate concern, because I feel like LFM, when we knew them, when they first got into HGC, it was Infernal Shrines and Sky Temple. That's the go-to. That's what they're going to end up playing.
I'm curious on the draft, especially around whatever Yoda's hero is going to be, whether we get more of a mage style or Tassadar. And that is something we don't see as much currently, but this is a battleground that caters towards Tassadar. He can play around the objective, and then if we get Lutano and one of those auto attack style heroes, get the play style around there. It is something where Yoda in the past has been extremely effective on. Something like Jaina also comes to mind, or his Li Ming. But the Zeratul that we've seen, things of that, the Medivh is fine if they get the Medivh, but if we keep it standard, more meta and outside of the norm, or the outside of the norm strategies that we've seen, maybe narrow that, bring it back to something you're comfortable at.
And based on the play that we've seen from these teams already in this series, I would love to see LFM ignore the first shrine. Pick a composition with that offlane pressure, whether it be with the hammer, or like you said, Tassadar Raynor is another composition that you can kind of make that happen. But right now, as it's currently laid out from games 1 and 2, I think LFM can win the game through macro. And this is a battleground you can get away through macro. And if we see them play that playstyle and then still be able to get a win here, I am very sold here on some of the work ethic being put in here from LFM and how well it's translating on game day. It's because that would, again, be kind of that same level of dismantling I feel like we saw in game number 1 with the 2-1-2 on Dragonshire. But we'll find out. Ladies and gentlemen, it is game 3. Again, not the sentence you probably expected to hear, but Team Freedom is down 2 games, 1 game away from getting shut out here by LFM.
The Abathur taken away, Diablo taken away, and takes away some of the unique picks and the power picks. And for LFM taking the Abathur off the board, one thing to consider is if we do want to see a team potentially ignore the first shrine, it is something Team Freedom has done. And a hero that could come in the later part of the draft is something like a Greymane, another hero that we've seen Yoda on in the past a couple of times this phase. And Maiev obviously being taken away, and I think Team Freedom, they have to decide, do we want to take a Medivh away or do we want to take a hammer away? And that has to be contemplated here.
It's a really interesting trade-off, and one where I feel like the hammer, in my opinion, would trade up more higher priority just based on, again, that off-lane pressure. Medivh can play into that playstyle, but it's very different and a little bit more difficult to be able to display. And right now, as it stands, LFM with that Sergeant Hammer consistent pressure, I would be more afraid of that. Again, based on what we got in game 1. Deckard is going to be the open, though. So we'll see if Freedom wants to commit to the Medivh on their half here, as we got from them in game number 1.
Well, now for Team Freedom, Medivh is there. It's available for you. Do you feel comfortable running that on Infernal Shrines, which most teams will say Medivh works in all circumstances, but are you willing to commit? As this is a very early Blaze pickup and a Junkrat, and the Junkrat does give you the opportunity in case we see LFM pick up the Medivh. Junkrat likely wouldn't be there post-second ban, so the early Junkrat makes sense.
Yeah, and that it makes sense, but I will say I think it's still a concern, right, is the best way to put it. It is a major overcorrection with the fear of the Medivh coming on the other side, being able to deter it, expecting it to come online, but I can't help but feel like if I'm LFM, if I go, I got you drafting a Junkrat and you're 1-2, I have got you on the rocks here. We're going to see Sergeant Hammer is the selection, along with Johanna, so very much able to play slow, not catering to the original shrine like I was asking. They don't have to commit or have to avoid it, but they definitely could move into the direction if LFM would like to.
So one thing that Team Freedom always did well was understanding that if you got an objective or if you're ignoring the objective, to prep the lane. And they would prep the lane and then 4-man or 3-man rotate over to that lane to make sure that they could get that structure damage in as they sieged up. So in the rotations, the one thing that Blaze and Junkrat both do incredibly well is prepare those lanes. So if they want to go down that route of coupling this with the gray main to play more around the macro style, it's definitely there. I do worry whether we get that style of play, especially now with the changes, or whether we get something more standard like mage play.
And one thing to consider with that gray main playstyle, what is your trade-off once a Sergeant Hammer is picked? Do you match the Sergeant Hammer and try and siege into that and get the counter siege, or do you give it up and trade into a different lane? That could be more profitable for you if you have the Punisher, for instance, spawning in that lane more frequently. But beyond that, you're essentially going toe-to-toe with a Hammer composition. Who wins if you go even with a Hammer? I'm going to say Hammer composition all day.
Well, the one hero that amplifies any sieging opportunity you have is the one that spawns beetles every time he presses a button. And that does eat those tower shots. So even if you don't have that minion wave prep, you can always dive. And a Nubrak does that very well. A Nubrak can also get on tops of the likes of Sergeant Hammer, lead that dive in. So this is going to be more situational control around the lanes and the rotations, but it also does give you some team fight potential.
It does. It's an interesting hybrid approach here for Freedom. Swab's locking in at the end there, that Leoric, and then a Thrall here to boot for LFM. So not as good of off-lane split pressure by the fact that we are going with the triple melee composition, but definitely Leo is a nice way to kind of compensate for that with his wave clear opportunities and provides for the very slow late-game team fight. There's a lot of responsibility here over the first couple of shrines, I feel like, on Team Freedom with the gray main variants that they've had in this composition.
Curious if we get, I was going to say, the Alex Straza obviously plays to the map, and that's something that does allow you to have shrine control. But also I wondered if maybe we would get something wild, like a Rhaegar, but then the Malfurion we know has fallen off quite a bit without the ice block, but has been something that we've seen teams use with that level 4 to be able to spawn that tree ant to make sure and use those vengeful roots. But instead, the Alex Straza makes sense, and it does allow them to siege up in areas where you otherwise wouldn't be able to when you just turn into a dragon.
Man, this whole draft here for these two teams, I'm really concerned. I brought it up in the draft a little bit, and I'm still concerned with it now. Is with we talked about the gray main trade-off. He's the original. I ignore the shrine. I split push elsewhere, right? But do you match the hammer, or do you try and go opposite split push, right? The standard Kursala trade-off, oh, I misguessed the 1-3-1. Do I end up just putting my 3-lane there and losing a lot and then trying to hold off that siege, or do I push elsewhere? And I feel like early game, it's going to look really good, and then as you go later stages, you're like, wait, you traded even with a hammer, and hammer sieges late game, you don't. And that's my biggest concern, I think, looking at this draft for Freedom.
It's a matter of finding that early game pressure. Team Freedom, they need to start the comeback, and they need to start it now, else LFM will take this series 3-0. We're going to head into game number 3 right now.
One thing I do really want to point out with the support trade-off, Alex in this type of circumstance, beyond the fact that it is a battleground where she's, more effective, the team fight approach for LFM when you look at their draft, unless we're going to get a Sundering, which this is actually a battleground and a situation where I can see a major argument for the Earthquake, that they're going to want to find themselves, for that long sustained fight, and Alex far better at kind of providing that long sustained team fight.
The laning setup with the Kerosene ban definitely takes away some of the potential, but when you see the gray main within a Nubrak, it is definitely, that is where we are diving, and that's exactly what we're getting in the top lane. So spawning those beetles, just look for W to be pressed. There's one beetle, wait for your Q to come out. Surprised he didn't E in. A lot of times we see you E in because then it gets you 3, but without knowing the rotations from LFM, a more cautious approach in the early game.
Sergeant Hammer doing her best to be able to start Havoc on the opposite side of the battleground, though, and a pretty reasonable response here for LFM. So already starting off the gates here to keep track of that split pressure kind of approach here for Team Freedom. Half a turret, not bad, but definitely not, the highest results that we've seen out of the early game rotations.
Fury's going to find several members in there. There's going to be the burrow charge, but nice use of the Iron Skin, able to walk away from that. I mean, that is one thing that Junkrat does do well, is that he has great wave clear, but he also can range against a Sergeant Hammer with those grenades that he can constantly shoot out.
Zugrug making that kind of information available and displayed that the rotation is going to be bottom. So it shouldn't be too concerned for Sergeant Hammer's positioning over the bottom half for a moment. Freedom in the downtime sending Lutano there on the gray main to be able to start the camp. Not going to be mirrored here, at least not yet by LFM. LFM I don't know if I want to praise it this time, but I still want to highlight the fact that they have some of the most creative laning situations that we've seen yet so far, between the decisions of running a tri-lane with Thrall being a part of that for a small period of time with the solo hammer, and then just being very fluid, making it difficult for Freedom to gain any confident decision with that gray main split push comp.
So this is the part I was talking about in the draft, is prepping the lane so that your minions are there by the time that your heroes get there. It's something they did well there, but the rotation interrupted and snipped out here by LFM. But that's something you'll see them constantly do, is they clear out a lane, and then by the time they make their way to the other lane, it's been well prepped. You can finish off the minions and allow your minions to come up there, get as much value as you can out of those health bars of the minions so that the turrets don't shoot against you. So it's always a clever approach when we see this from Team Freedom, and now we're seeing them able to capitalize on some of these early gains.
But compared to, again, some of the times that we can see this be ran at other parts of the world and things of the like, sometimes you'll see the first turret die as early as literally the first rotation, and the front wall is already dead. So again, kind of keeping it to tempo, though Freedom is making it look good and obviously coming in with a game plan. I definitely would not put this as like unprecedented results so far. And if you are LFM, knowing you're looking for more of that long, slower game, it's not, you aren't hitting the panic button, at least not yet here. I think this is going to be the breaking point, the first shrine, and how much offlane pressure we'd really see a Team Freedom get done. And with the Shaman camp being started.
Yeah, LFM's not even starting theirs, Dread. That's been the response, because when Sergeant Hammer's been elsewhere, their main damage dealer has been Thrall, and they've been putting all their effort into defending the push. So when you look down here towards the bot lane, it's up to Junkrat and Blaze. They are not trying to capture this. They are simply delaying this, because every skeletal defender you take denies that many more from your opponent. So you just sit there and you casually poke, you take away some of that, and that allows the push in the other lane.
Yeah, and this is actually really concerning because, again, this is a very predictable rotation from Team Freedom at this point in time. When you see the first shrine split push in the opposite side, and the fact that they're getting this much damage done is more than I would argue they maybe should have gotten away with. We see Zugrug maybe struggling for a moment, get the burrow charge out. Condemn going to be thrown down along with the Abundance heal. Impale does land there for Fury. Iron Skin not going to be up for a couple more. Nasmus joins his way in here. Punisher picked up by LFM, but comes at the cost here of the top 4.
They need to finish this. There's only one minion left. Of course, you can still spawn those beetles, but they've stuck around a little longer than I think they had intended, which is why we see Nasmus staying up here longer than he wanted to. Obviously, Junkrat dealing with that in the bottom, but Droplets, he's going to get caught out. And Team Freedom, they are flexing that. This, as you said, it was slow to start, but this has really ramped up in favor of Team Freedom.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, a lot of that comes down to LFM for some reason. For how much time it seems like they put thought into the laning situation of Dragonshire. Again, a very predictable rotation here from Freedom with too late a response, and Freedom is just unleashing now at this point in time to obtain their full level lead, able to siege more significantly on the top half than the bottom. So now, again, kind of keeping track of that gauge we were talking about. I would argue once LFM picked up that top 4, all right, now you're hitting the point of LFM, you may be questioning, are we going to have to hit this panic button in this game?
Surprised we didn't get the rotation out. The rotation from Blaze is already coming up to support just in case a disengage is needed. But it's a matter of, generally we would see that mid lane pressure, get that wave down, and then instantly turn towards those walls. In the old days, prior to Phase 2, these walls, the value on them, 500 experience each on those towers. Now it's basically been cut in half, so the value of those significantly less. And so the value put into those versus forts is far different, which is why the fort was so valuable and why you look up and you see that full level lead.
Yeah, and a lot of the arguments, based on the difference in laning that we see now is based on that front wall is just not nearly as effective. And that is why the 1-4 actually was created, was to take out front walls as fast as it possibly can. But as we see here on Infernal Shrines, Freedom, with that rotation that they did have and what the experience advantage they've accumulated, they will be able to pick up their heroics here, stack a double Impaler camp, 1 through mid, 1 through bottom. I would like to see a minimum of 1-4 go down in that downtime. Knowing that middle, this is actually a really cool decision making. If you are at Freedom and you get to choose which fort you take down for free, do you choose the one over the next Punisher to keep that momentum going into your favor, or do you look in the long run and get off lane split pressure and focus for bottom? Looks like the answer for now is at least to stick here with the camp and get the siege through mid.
Yeah, we saw some clever play by Nasmus as he kept shooting those jet streams over the wall so that the Impalers were trying to take down that well. They were unsuccessful. Getting the well down during this next objective phase would be good if they could get that, which is why we see the positioning more towards the bottom half. It also allows for a quicker rotation down. But that is a defensive tool that LFM will have for the next Shrine phase. Actually, they're sniping it. They are still on it. They are sniping this over the wall.
Oh, but Collusion maybe got to get rooted there. A little bit of damage thrown over the wall by Figgy. Still no heroics there for Freedom.
Got it.
Or excuse me, LFM. But yeah, Freedom ended up picking up the well. Leoric will be able to figure out the heroic situation there after he picks up the soak on mid. And we already see the Napalm with the Entomb. Entomb Wraith Walk all the way through, forcing out the bunker. The scroll is ceiling thrown down. Good dodge there with the entrance again. Lornado going to be dropped. Everybody needs a body block for that jet propulsion. It's interrupted. Nasmus goes down, but look at bottom here. Freedom pushing away as fast as possible.
Yeah, the timing on that death is very, very bad when you look at the fact that the Shrine's starting before Blaze even respawn. So the approach for Team Freedom will be a more cautious approach at the beginning of this, but they did find that value in the other lane. That does require a response from Thrall.
Shrine started. How many skeletal defenders do they get for free here over Freedom, knowing that Blaze is going to be down? Thrall still worried about the off-lane pressure. His scroll ceiling comes out here 7-4 in favor of LFM for now. Not going to get rid of that camp completely. Now making the transition up. A lot's going to come down here to that team fight. Still 19 seconds till we get the heroics here for Johanna.
Also have the Dragon Queen to consider. There's the last heal. The minute that last heal goes out, in comes the Dragon Queen. Swab's the first to fall. The Cocoon was used onto Johanna. The Lornado just trying to buy space, so Fury has an exit route. For now,
the reinitiation is what LFM's looking for in this composition. Can they get the turnaround? Two-man jet propulsion comes through, drop lands. Oh, the concussion mine as well. I guess that answers that question very quickly. The reinitiation does happen, but still, LFM gets just destroyed there over that skirmish.
The early pick was not crazy, but the minute that Dragon came out, they got the follow-up, the concussion mine. Then we're talking now with some early damage done already. This Punisher, including it being the Arcane Punisher, will get much more value than earlier anticipated. Lutano, of course, on the gray main this game, not Yoda. It's going to go and instantly start with those Worgen form autos, which are so significant. Figgy in the Sergeant Hammer will have some defense, but the rest of the team does struggle because it's all melee.
There's the leap over the wall. Can the gate drop here for Team Freedom? Doesn't look like they're putting too much focus into it, so I doubt they're going to be able to get that much siege damage done beyond that point. Leoric has not made his way down whatsoever here. But Team Freedom, with the 13 talent tier advantage, at this point now they're going to play Ring Around the Rosie and just dance around this battleground. They do not have to give LFM an even-footed fight whatsoever for the rest of this game. Even make the transition down to be able to rid of this bottom four.
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm talking about. The mini-map, I'm just watching the mini-map. Junkrat made that rotation down to prep that wave. It was slightly behind, but that's the joy of having an Anubarak spawning those beetles. And so the rotation, generally you'll see teams take one tower and then forgo the rest. They ended up taking the entire wall mid because they had great sieging damage and only hammer on the other side, plus the Arcane Punisher, very threatening. Any other Punisher, I don't know if they can accomplish that, but they got the entire keep wall, used the Junkrat to prep that bottom lane, and they ended up getting a fort. This is Team Freedom and their macro style play, and it's starting to look very effective as they've amassed a 2-level lead.
My only concern I feel like that is left in this game based on how big of an advantage Freedom has got is LFM's comp post 20 is terrifying. It is still really difficult to be able to deal with. The Sergeant Hammer, Leo, Johanna, Deckard, that slow level of play with the Earthquake kind of pulled away. As long as the original initiation doesn't kind of get that one shot like we saw over the last Shrine, I do think LFM have the opportunity. The answer is, or the question more so is like, can they really even make it to that point now that we have seen the 16 talents are going to be forced, their composition can not really kind of catch somebody off guard, as we saw how long it took them to catch out a bunker, you know, kind of blaze over the last fight there. So now Freedom, the world is very much theirs, and the question is, can LFM get to 20 versus 22 fight? Probably down a couple of keeps as well.
I want to see the timing because LFM did pick up their camp early, and the next Shrine will be on the bottom. We've seen Team Freedom basically ignore certain elements of the game to just manipulate it in their favor. If they get this camp early, before the Shrine phase, they might push. They're going to go ahead and get that cleaned up. The next Shrine phase obviously will spawn soon, but they'll have 16 talent tier advantage and a lot in their favor.
LFM with the counter response on bottom. At this point, it really is just minimizing losses more than it is being proactive. Trying to get as much damage out. There you see the prep from Team Freedom, keeping the siege up top here with that 16. A whole front wall would be pretty devastating there in that top lane. There's already half of it taken off the table. Swabs trying to use the 13 to get rid of the advancement of Team Freedom. But that's going to be a key front wall, ladies and gentlemen. A very heavy siege for Freedom. And as we said, LFM still out of range here for the 16 over this next shrine.
Things just so much in favor of Team Freedom, forcing LFM to dance around them. They got the entire wall there. They still have 16-tier advantage, and then that forces out the rotation. Team Freedom, they'll fall back, look towards this bottom shrine. They should still have an advantage unless LFM is willing to risk this fight, but the Punisher, if it goes over to Team Freedom and this advantage and the sieging potential, could very easily be our first keep of the game.
The biggest thing for LFM is they need to establish a territory for them to be able to reasonably fight and not allow for a massive jet propulsion, and not making it through that choke is going to be a problem. You see Figgy trying. Tornado going to be thrown out. There's the bunker on to Nasmus. 9 skeletal defenders. Droplet trying to get the flank as they land the scroll ceiling onto 1. Napalm damage is going to be there. Nasmus actually getting back into the bunker, but he's just 1 HP. Can he get into the healing? He actually jet propulsion's out. Now Fury falling very low. Nobody going down quite yet, but the skeleton defenders heavily in favor of Freedom.
Collusion had just enough range on that healing because Nasmus got caught out. Now we're going to see this go down. You know that Team Freedom, had they not gotten caught out, I would say that's, oh, wait a minute, hold on, that's Johanna end up going down. But imagine if you have this dragon now instead of to secure that when you had 16-tier advantage. It does take away, but Droplets, if he falls here, uses that Wind Fury. There's the Lornado. Oh, nice concussion mine. Droplets getting stun locked. I was going to say, the Dragon Queen obviously would help this push, but a couple kills definitely gives you the advantage.
Yeah, that was very clean synergy there at the very end between Zugrug and the Junkrat here. Punisher leap baited over to the wall. Siege is going to continue. Figgy is receiving the pressure for now. Swabs using the Wraith Walk, trying to get debuffs out. But now the siege is going to happen here over the bottom keep. Inevitably, this bottom keep will end up falling as everybody of Freedom, they're in the bunker throwing out the flamethrowers. Blind drop, condemn back to try and help the scroll of sealing. A lot of pressure on Anasmus, actually. Jet propulsion now. They get the cocoon, the healing coming through. Oh,
and now they're turning it. They get the kill. That's going to be kill number 1. Can they get another? Lutano going in. He is going for the throat of the members. That's a second member down. And just like that, LFM thought that they might have had a counter kill, but now it's Team Freedom looking to try and close out this game and get back into the series.
They got to get the kill onto Figgy, and Lutano moving out a little bit too aggressive. They're shielding on the core now, falling to almost 0%. Droplets going up, poking and prodding. Riptire going to come through. Damage is going to be sent out. Figgy trying to get the damage. Fury moves up a 60% and counting. The Earthquake thrown down. Zugra is going to be the first to drop. Second is Lutano as he gets the disengage back. 40% on the core. Yoda is all in here, ladies and gentlemen. He now ends up going down. Freedom is retreating here still with 38% on the core, and Swabs back to life.
There's the bunker again, trying to survive for now. Figgy, he's taking a lot of damage. Does have that. Lutano comes in with the execution. He said, if I'm going down, you're coming with me. He's actually the last one to survive. That's 4 members down from Team Freedom. Lutano, he's just going to be a casualty of 4. Maybe he goes back in, tries to get more damage, but for Lutano, he needs to die.
Lutano dies. About a 40-second difference between that and the original kill there onto a new Barak at first. 38% is left onto the core for LFM. They cannot relieve pressure on that bottom lane. Otherwise, they will constantly just have to fear Team Freedom and their backdoor capabilities. So what that means is they need the Shaman Camp pressure towards the top half back into their favor. They're not looking towards that 30-second window. Instead, they're going to look for a siege and then backdoor or pick up the Shamans in the downtime. But the biggest thing is once everybody of Freedom is alive, I need LFM on the bottom half of the battleground sieging with a mercenary camp. And I feel like J-How, by the fact that they are opting for this fort before the camps, shows that they're going to be a little bit late on this rotation. And then Freedom is back to comfort and control.
Yeah, I mean, we look at it and Team Freedom will be at level 20, most likely, and should be by the time the next Shrine phase starts. And it is at the very top. And that bot lane, obviously with catapults, puts you on that timer. You will lose out. They are getting some pressure here, and they do get some experience back by way of that fort, but they need so much more to come back. And every second that comes down, LFM is trying to buy as much time as they can. If they can continue to get more in, it's fine. But Team Freedom will likely be in control by the time the next Shrine phase starts.
Camp is going to be started by Freedom, and they know Junkrat is displaying itself top. If LFM, with the decision-making they made, they need to pick in these type of situations to gain control back into this game. I would like to see heavier initiation over those type of situations, especially if they have any information on the Junkrat split push. 20 creeping here for Freedom. As we've said, it will be there in control over the next Shrine. And now without that siege and without that amount of pressure on bottom, as I said, Freedom back to standard and control here.
See if we get any type of invade on that top right Shaman camp. With that 20-tier advantage, I think it'll be unlikely that LFM would contest that. And they're already moving over there They should have enough quick siege damage to take this down. This is troublesome for LFM because this will allow that push. And remember, Dreadnought, very early in the game, in that top lane push, they already took down that keep wall. So for LFM, they're trying to make a fast rotation. This keep, or excuse me, this fort plus this minion wave will get them awfully close to 20, which is why I think for Team Freedom, they are fast racing onto this, and that is going to be enough. LFM should be back here in time to contest.
But with 38% on the core and the minion wave meeting dead center, it is now a time bomb there. A minute and a half into this game, and bottom lane is going to have 3 catapults onto the core of LFM, so they need to make something happen now. Swabs comes in there with the Wraith Walk. They're going to try and make the play. And Tomb goes down. It's only on to Alex Straza. That's buried alive. She can't get out of here. Fury putting out that damage, but the Cleansing Flame thrown up. He'll be able to keep himself alive a little bit longer. Fury comes in. Yoda's the focus. Concussion Mine goes through, and then is LFM getting the first pit.
The Punisher's here, though. See if he gets involved in this fight as Collusion's still in that Dragon Queen trying to get the damage out. There's multiple roots going to be there, but now we see Yoda trying to go in. Lutano trying to go in. That's going to be a triple kill. Will we make it a 4th? Swab somehow surviving. Nasmus alive for now, but there is a camp plus a Punisher on that top. LFM, can you afford to do anything else here? Because Zugrug just trying to buy time.
Don't wait, Droplets makes it back here for free with those Beetles getting the track down. Zugrug is going to buy as much time to make sure that back doesn't happen. He needs to be careful, though. It might cost him his life if he overextends a little bit too far. Burrow charge available. We'll be able to get the retreat. Siege still continuing. Those catapults are mounting on bottom, but because that Punisher was dealt with effectively as fast as it was, this is going to be LFM just getting the clear, not worried about bottom, and back to almost exactly what we saw over the last situation here, Jay-How.
The last few minutes, LFM, the defense on the core was the start, but their decision-making to get 20 and how they obtain 20 to get back into that fight, very significant. And now they're moving. I don't know if that minion wave might actually take down that keep. No way. Did they had this great defense.
It's, oh my goodness. The last arrow strikes.
Got him. Wow.
Siege continues here through mid for LFM. Interesting choice to keep pressure on mid. Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, catapults are building on bottom. It's only going to be 1 for now. It's a little bit longer timing based on the positioning of the wave than it was over that top fight. But my goodness, I can't help but feel like LFM needs to stop applying pressure to every lane but the lane that is a win condition for their opponents. It is going to possibly cost them this game, Jay-How, in the miracle defense that they have upheld.
Think about this now. If that top keep survives, and the next shrine is bottom, you don't have to worry about catapults, and therefore you don't have to worry about the inevitable end of minions. That keep fell to minions after the defense. I'm not sure what they were planning to accomplish elsewhere on the map. Yeah. All the forts were down. You don't need the experience. It's a matter of stabilizing, and by losing that keep, it's actually the exact opposite.
Yeah, no, they've essentially exponentially increased the problems on other half of the battleground, which is the pretty much worst case scenario other than having, number 1, your mouse and keyboard break, number 2, your monitor probably break, or 3, your hands are suddenly tied. Minion wave.
Why would your hands be tied?
Don't ask questions here. LFM might have their hands tied in a moment here. Look at this backdoor attempt. Minion waves spawn at every 30-second increment, so you can expect the double zeros. We'll have more minions. So if LFM makes this, or excuse me, Team Freedom makes this rotation, it's got to be around the 2010 time frame if they're going to make that. Maybe a little bit later. Looks like more than importantly, they're just trying to see is Swab's going to make the mistake of walking out too far, and if they can get that hashtag passive value.
Tense moments arise. It's like Team Freedom. If every member that continues to show on the minimap just gives more decision-making opportunities to Team Freedom, but if they don't come to them and they don't find a way to take control of that, then conceivably LFM continues to make more. Like right now, Sergeant Hammer will show on the minimap if she pushes out any further, which is why you see them staying far enough back to not reveal in vision.
All right, Jay-How. We've got 20 seconds on a shrine. Split push catapult pressure on the top half of the battleground. Swabs is ridding of the double catapults now. There will be 1 catapult wave pushing with the Shaman Camp enabling that, but a counter Shaman Camp for LFM. That is not going to matter that much. I would actually argue this is one of the situations where capturing this camp actually is hurting you.
We saw this on Sky Temple yesterday.
It stacks the catapults more frequently in the top lane, allowing for the lethal to come in, because if you get those catapults 1 at a time, it only removes shielding on the core. Multiple is where you get that permanent damage. We'll find out if comebacks to bite them here.
Look at Greymane and team on the minimap, Dreadnought. They're going in. They're trying to go for the back door.
They're going to go for that back door. Oh my goodness.
They're going to use Blaze and Junkrat to deny any backs.
Thrall's got to scout this out as soon as possible. Earthquake and dismount as soon as he possibly can. He has not shown himself yet. Zugrugs now shows the backdoor is going to be here. They're going.
It's up to Junkrat and Blaze to try and keep him from back. It is kind of slow right now, but if they can keep him from backing, there's going to be the root coming in. We've got to wait for more. Again, it's all about Junkrat denying that back.
The Cocoon.
The Cocoon's going to be there. They should be able to get on this. Lutano and team. Here comes the Dragon.
The Dragon Queen is out here. Thrall is going to be able to throw down the Earthquake, but it might not matter there. 20% and counting. Team Freedom. Backdoor with this macro pressure starting as early minute 1 and make it worth here at the very end. Well done here, and more importantly, hold on to this series and get themselves a win.
The only way I think that is 100% successful, which it was the placement. You know that you have enough between that 3-man rotation, Greymane and a Nubrak obviously spawning. Nice Cocoon, by the way. But the Junkrat and the Blaze, their only job was to, look, it's okay if you die. Just keep them from backing instantly. And I'm watching the Junkrat like on the mini-map. I'm trying to keep an eye on both, and he's using the concussion mines, getting over. Blaze going in, trying to get, and the disruption was enough. They could not back, ended up forcing them to go ahead, and by the time they mounted and got there, it was far little too late. And so I love the play, I love the call, I love the thought process behind it, and those are moments that when you're in that game, it seems like, all right, this should be more tense than it is, but we got him. Like, we got him in control. I love that call from Team Freedom to get themselves back in the series.
I like the call as well, and it actually is, I don't know, it's a really interesting how that entire game kind of unfolded, right? Because with how much dominance in terms of the macro sense, this feels like LFM was displaying in games 1 and 2. Then with the obvious rotation with the Shaman Camp off pressure, they didn't respond to it appropriately. It just, to me, it feels like it's very concerning on that kind of back and forth in display from them in games 1, 2, and then again going into number 3, and suddenly it makes game number 4. I'm like, I don't really know who reliably has the advantage in the macro. Team fight, it's very impressive on both fronts, but the macro front, it's like a light switch, you know? If one team's got it, the other one just does it.
It's like double ends at the end of the hallway. Well, LFM has garnered themselves some cheers out there, or at least some respect in the Twitter universe using that hashtag HGC. Because Kylaris, not to be confused with Kalaris, or KLRS as he's now known, kicking all kinds of butt right now. This is so exciting. Go team. Looking at that, you LFM.
Nice to be able to have the support there for LFM. I'm also cheering for LFM here today, purely based on how awesome their performance was in game number 1 and 2. This is the LFM Esports I've been dying to see. Close it out. I agree. I've been dying to see it as well. To see this level of step up from this team is just, it's almost inspiring.
Is it too late for them to maybe, like, just brand change? LFM Esports actually sounds pretty cool.
LFM Esports. It doesn't. Somehow I don't think that people are going to look at that in an appropriate manner. Maybe I just feel like some way they're going to skew that into something not good.
We'll brainstorm about that later. But for Team Freedom, finding their way back into this series, it did feel weird that LFM, the way that they won the first 2 games, it just seems like it caught Team Freedom off guard.
Yeah.
This time, Team Freedom, they came out with the game plan. They went back. For Phase 2, them only picking this map once up until now, again, the changes in after Phase 1 had such a major impact on those front walls, which is where you would see Team Freedom, they just grab a wall, move down, grab another wall, and then at that point you're like, how are they up 10-8? What just happened? Since those changes, it's not as easy. They had a clear plan to get there. We're going to see what their plan is as it's time to check out Battleground number 4 and whether Team Freedom can complete the comeback.